if we have any calling, it is to take advantage of this moment.
Absolutely.
And say, you know what, Obama's right. You know, the Black tradition, whatever it is multiple, it's massive, it's visionary, it's all-encompassing. And so we need to go back and pay attention to these thinkers and writers and activists and rewrite our history. Otherwise, we inherit this narrative that says Black people are just narrow identity politics.
Can't get over their skin.
Can't get over the skin color. And they have nothing to say. But Obama has transcended race. So transcend race means both to ignore race, but also to be able to rise above special interest politics. Jesse Jackson, when he ran in 84 and 88, that wasn't a Black agenda. That was a national agenda. And I have to say, if you look at Jackson's actual platform, it was the most progressive platform of any mainstream Democrat. You know, just go back and look at it in terms of peacetime spending, in terms of, health care and that sort of thing. But we need to go back and look at our traditions.
Jesse, though, in all honesty, was in many ways too stained by his association with the civil rights movement. And I think it's interesting that even though we connect Barack Obama to Martin Luther King, there are those who would argue that the reason he's successful is because he managed to sort of cut himself off from those associations. It's true. And
right.
after he won won Iowa, which is when suddenly all the true love fell his way, right? He was attacked for not mentioning Martin Luther King's name in his speech. Do you remember that? I mean, now we forget all the things in the past. We just love him blindly, right? No, but he was attacked for not mentioning Martin Luther King's name in his speech. Yeah. And he was consistently attacked by the civil rights generation up until that point for not connecting himself enough to the civil rights generation. Of course, when they said the civil rights generation, they meant themselves, really. That's what they meant, right? But, I think it's too easy to just assume a connection when, in fact, Obama worked hard to sever it. And what are the implications of having cut yourself off from the civil rights movement is something that I think we need to think about, because it is our real guiding compass for understanding racial progress and regress in America. Or is it, in fact, something that we need to just bury, right? Nobody wants to do that, but Obama kind of has, all right? I mean, what do you think?
Well, what do you think? I mean, because that's actually a really interesting question. I mean, he has. What do you think what are the consequences of that, you think?
Well, I think many things on this particular issue, but I would say that as someone whose work and whose primary interest is around Black immigrants who, an important statistic for me is the fact that since 1990, more Africans have come to America than at the height of the slave trade. Sit with that for a while. And think about the West Indian immigrants and the people who are Black but are not necessarily Black because they come from Spanish-speaking countries, right? If you really look at the questions as to what constitutes Black in America, it's undergoing an amazing, amazing shift right now. And yes, they may partake of African-American politics and identity, but politically, they tend to be different. Right? They don't vote necessarily in the same way. Right? Their affiliations aren't the same, and they don't have the same understanding of race and culture and politics because of the immigrant experience. Right? They also don't necessarily give much of a damn about the civil rights movement, which is a problem because certainly it conditioned their acceptance and their participation in this country. But we can't expect that Black immigrants who are coming and participating in the life of this nation, certainly in the educational system, et cetera, necessarily feel the need to orient themselves through Martin Luther King's legacy, right? So that's how I come at it, right?
Well, the sad thing is that I would say 90% of my students who are American-born feel the same way. They have no identification with the civil rights movement, with its legacy, with its contributions. And part of it has to do with simply not knowing the relationship between, and I think of the long civil rights movement. I think for getting the 14th Amendment, which Black people made possible, emancipation, abolition, democracy, that all these things.
And the anti-colonial
exactly.
impact of it.
I mean, exactly. And so even anything that happened before like 1990, my students are just not interested. You know,
that's pre.
You know, I shouldn't say all that. I mean, some of my students may be here, but you know, so I think that's part of the problem, that we don't do a good job as a nation of really valuing and explaining the legacy and what impact it has on today.